So when I was becoming Orthodox, and even today, one kind of Orthodox approach, a semi-scholarly approach, is to litigate every little detail. You know, academic Bible critics say X, and Orthodox scholars say not X, and then it's on and on, you know, sparring back and forth. So I always wanted a broader principle than just sort of refuting point by point these sort of thousands of details.
I call this whack-a-mole theology. Another problem comes up, you bop it on the head and hope, wait for the next one.
And I always felt myself, I'm not going to have the time to research every single, scholarly crevice of academic biblical criticism. Some people have. One of your guests, Rabbi Joshua Berman, is an expert in that field. But even his thinking about this is not whack-a-mole.
Correct. He has a founding principle.
Exactly. So I think what Strauss is suggesting here is that you can look at biblical criticism and say that these contradictions that are in the text that biblical critics have classically examined, highlighted, one way to interpret them is as the way academic biblical critics have, and say this reflects the authorship of one group, this reflects the authorship of a different group. And within the assumptions of academic biblical criticism, this is I'm not knocking it.
It's compelling.
I'm saying within those assumptions,
Sure.
It's compelling. But the question is, what are the assumptions? The assumptions are that the Orthodox story of how this book came to be is dismissed at the outset. I mean, the Orthodox version of events is there's God, and Moses dictated the Torah according to God's dictation, essentially. However you want to put it. Whatever sophisticated version of that thing you want to, but there is a classic Orthodox picture of God transmitted the Bible to Moses at Sinai. So if you assume that did not happen, because that just seems like preposterous, and then you have to figure out, well, how did this text get together? So based on excluding that first assumption, we'll explain the text. And within that assumption, like I said, I think, who am I to argue with academic Bible critics? I think the place where what's interesting to me is you don't have to make that assumption. You could make a different assumption. You could assume that the Orthodox account of how the Bible came into being, and then those contradictions that are explained as historical anomalies and telling us this, that, or the other about how the Bible was stitched together are actually vehicles by which God is communicating some kind of message to the Jewish people in the world, whatever those theological messages are. That's the whole world of Midrashim and Talmudic interpretation that takes all those contradictions and deals with them and gives a different interpretation to what they mean.